Hi there, welcome back. Welcome to a new project, and this time I really expect it to be a quick one. This belongs to a friend of mine. He's in a bit of a hurry, so I'll try and comply. Now, as you can see, the condition is not at the best, at least not from the front. Everything here seems okay, except that some of the labeling or the paint at the back of the dial glass is chipping off. Not much I can do there, except perhaps seal it in with some lacquer, clear lacquer. And as usual, this is a Madeira radio, so it's got, it actually has long wave. Most of them didn't. So we've got long wave, medium wave, and 2 shortwave bands. And then you can also click the 2 shortwaves together to activate the pickup input at the back. The bakelite chassis is actually in very good condition, with the exception of a small crack that you can see over here. The worst damage is obviously on this section here. The entire thing has been ripped out, and also if we look at the speaker, it's in pretty bad condition. It's torn, completely torn away, so that'll have to be replaced as well. What we've got here is the tone control and volume control. Nothing unusual. Here is slightly different. We've got tuning, and we've got something called syntonization. I'll be quite honest with you, I don't know what that is. We'll find out when we look at the schematic. This back cover looks as good as the front looks bad. It's in perfect condition. In fact, it almost looks like it's been polished. Maybe it has. We've got the ferrite antenna orientator. It's orientatable, so you can move it around. We've got the antenna and ground input there. There's the model number, pickup input and external speaker. The power cord coming out there. It's a 2-prong, or rather 2-line cord. It's actually been fixed there, so we'll have to replace that. It's got a simple 2-prong plug, which we'll also replace. I want to take a moment to thank the sponsors of this video, PCBWay. They've got a very interesting project going on at the moment. What they're asking for is for anybody who's got knowledge they want to share, tips they want to share, projects they want to share them on the platform and enter the competition. I'll place the link to the promo video in the description below, and have a look at them. They've got some great prizes. One of them is $800 in cash, and at $5 for 10 boards, you can buy a lot of PCBs with that. Visit the website and check them out. And the back doesn't really have any surprises. We've got the selector for 220 volts over here, so we're okay there. We've got a tube rectifier. I think this is the EZ80. There's a speaker there. It's quite a hefty speaker. Unfortunately, the whole thing at the front is rotted away. The usual Phillips transformer, which looks worse than it probably is. They do tend to look grubby after a while. EL84, there's actually a fuse in there. It says there's 63 milliamps. There's a fuse behind that tube. ECH81 mixer oscillator. What is that? EF89, that's the IF amplifier. And this is slightly different, EBC81. I hope this thing's okay, because I don't think I've got a spare one of those. And the usual, filter caps. The ferrite antenna can be aligned so you can get a better reception, depending on how you set the radio down on in your living room. This is the whole cabinet is bakelite, and it's in very good condition as far as I can see so far, except that little crack at the bottom. So I don't think this thing should be too complex. I haven't looked on the inside yet. I haven't switched it on. I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to go through this rather fast. I'm going to replace the filter caps, which I'm sure need replacing. This thing's leaking at the top a little bit there as well. So replace that, remove the tubes and check the power supply, and then I'll go back as usual. I'll check the output, make sure that we've got output coming, audio coming through, and then go back and check the radio. Because this is only AM, we don't have an FM circuit, it's usually a lot simpler. I actually quite enjoy the Philips radios. There are a lot of them in Madeira. These were very popular. And the ones in Madeira normally don't have FM, because FM came very late. And also, obviously, the FM were more expensive. And if you know anything about Portuguese history, you'll know that in the 50s, we're in the middle of the Salazar period, where money was not in great abundance. So people would not have that much money to spend on this sort of thing. In fact, the people who could afford radios were a very small portion of the population in Madeira. And it's a joke now when you think of, you know, what you can get, and everybody can afford an iPhone and an iPad and everything else, and a flat screen TV. In those days, things were a little bit tighter. So a lot of these radios don't have FM. I have something I want to try on this later, but I'm not going to comment on it now because I'm not sure it's possible. But if I do what I plan to do here, I'll report on that later. And just as a hint, it's not going to be the Bluetooth module. The owner doesn't want that. Something better. And just as sacrilegious to anybody who objects to modernizing these things. All right, let me carry on. I'm going to get this thing out of the chassis, put it on the stand, the holder there, and we'll look inside and see what we're facing here. Well, no big surprises here. We've got the usual Phillips capacitors, these things in tar. These things are notoriously leaky, so they'll all be replaced. What are we looking at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Probably a couple more around here. Some of these are ceramics, so they should be okay, I hope. And the output transformer is actually on the underside here. It's actually pretty small, as is to be expected. All the switching seems to be working, and it's pretty easily accessible if you need to clean them. The pots are turning. The tuning dial's there. You can see sort of the flaking paint at the back here. Now the only thing I can do there really is spray it with some lacquer to try and seal what's there. I don't think I'm going to be able to do much more. You can't exactly sort of just paint this. And getting another one of these is going to be practically impossible. So I'm going to get cracking on this. In fact, I think I'm just going to attack the capacitors. I'm not sure that I want to switch it on just yet. There's so few that I need to do that I'd prefer to get that headache out of the way. I'll obviously check the output transformer and the power transformer first. That would be a good idea before I go wasting time. I might have one of those blown. So I'll do that first. I'm going to do the simplest test on the power transformer. I've connected the multimeter across the prongs here. Now, if I do have continuity on the primary, that should show up here when I switch one of these on. So, well, it's there, 120 ohms, but it's obviously dirty. So this thing just needs some cleaning. We've got the primary, seems to be fine. I'll check the secondary by pulling out the rectifier tube. And EZ80 is 1 and 7. Those are the two inputs. So between 1 and 7, what I'm reading is the secondary of the supply. So 1 and 7, we got 200 ohms. Yep, so that's fine. So far, so good. So I believe the power transformer is fine. And now I just want to check the output transformer. And the way I'm going to check the output transformer is the normal way, and I've shown this in a building block video. So I'll just link that above. Make sure the output transformer is fine as well. And then carry on. Now I've checked the output transformer. It seems to be fine. I've connected the AC voltmeter to the, well, actually it's connected to ground and to pin 7 of the tube. There's a center tap going to ground, which is the chassis. So I'm going to switch that on. 269 volts. That sounds about right. There's no tube in there. There's no EZ80 tube in there. There's the other side, 266. So that's okay. And one more bit of news. The dial lamp's going on, so we know that the heater voltage is fine. There are no tubes in there at the moment. The other thing is, I know from looking at the back there that it's I've got one bulb in there only, so it's only got a 40 watt bulb in there, so it's highly restricted, but it's only drawing 70 milliamps, probably the dial lamp and a bit of leakage, but the radio is seeing 222 volts, so there's no shorts. There are no shorts, which is a good thing, and I think we can carry on now. I'll do the filter caps first, then I'll check that the B plus is getting through, and then I'll go on to the output, check whether the output's working, whether the audio section is working, which means the, what is it, EBC81? What is it? EBC81, this tube here, and the EL84. This is an original Philips Mini Watt. EL84, make sure those are fine. If we've got the audio section working, then we can step back and see what we do about the radio section. Well, it's sometime later and we've got the tone coming through, but there's definitely a crackle here, and it's a crackle that I'm not able to clean with contact cleaner. So I've got a feeling this crackles from DC on the pot. And if there's DC on the pot, it means the coupling capacitor is leaking. I haven't changed those caps at all. I just wanted to make sure this the audio section was working, and it is, with the two shortwave buttons depressed simultaneously. And I've got the tone coming into the gramophone input at the back. So what I'm going to do now, not stress the valves anymore, or the tubes, I'm going to do a recapping, change those really nasty caps in there, and see if we can get rid of this crackle. The idea is that on the pot you should have only AC, only the audio signal, and not any DC component. Now, because that audio signal is getting to the pot through a capacitor, which is supposed to block DC, if that capacitor is leaking, you get DC on here. And this scratchiness, if it's not from dirt that's accumulated on there, which I don't believe it is, then it's DC on the pot. Okay, let me carry on. Quite a bit's been done. I've done, I believe, all the recapping that I need to do. First step was the filter capacitors. That dual cap that goes out the top, I decided to leave in place. I just cut the leads, connected these two. These are 47 microfarads at 400 volts, and connected the wires to that. That's quite tightly held down with that zip tie. Nothing dramatic over here. There is one resistor that I found that was open, which was the input from the gramophone. So that wouldn't have received any tone whatsoever. And I had already replaced that. But other than that, all the capacitors that I replaced were on here. And as you can see, not many. And they replaced these these monsters over here. These things are notoriously bad. I've not found one Philips radio that with these capacitors that didn't have massive leakage. So what we really have now is the thing is ready to be tested for the radio function, which is obviously the most important. All the switches are pretty accessible. You can see them. And so it's quite easy to spray in contact clean and then just activate the switches many, many times. Let me turn this around and see if we pick up anything. The dim bulb tester is on with a couple of bulbs. I've got the mini whip antenna, and we'll go to medium wave. I've got the speaker connected over here. All the tubes seem to be lighting up. I've cleaned the contacts on the tubes and the sockets. Ha!
De 12:31, siga escribiendo 677-92-6015. ¿Cómo se llama el jardín botánico de Tenerife en el que se encuentra?
This is from Tenerife, Canary Islands.
El central metropolitano en el Palacio de los Deportes. Antonio Zapatero, el viceconsejero de Salud Pública.
Another one from Canary Islands. Another one from Canary Islands.
De lo que va a ser ahora, porque era mucho más grande. Hay que cerrar su plan. Calle aquí en una.
Okay, that's good. Long wave. Don't expect anything here today. It's their time of day. Oh. Well, that's a surprise. Somewhere here there's a beacon that I normally receive from the Porto Santo airport. But I don't know where it is because I've got no dial glass on. Okay, but those are working. Shortwave. nothing. I think it's trying to receive, but depends on which part of the shortwave band it's trying to pick up from this time of day. Yeah, I think it's trying, but obviously there's nothing here at this time of day. And I think we've got reception. So I really am just sort of getting my head around what I need to do here next. I'm going to try a quick alignment, and at least the IF alignment. Because of the condition of the dial glass, I don't even think I'm going to try the RF alignment. I've got the service manual. I got it from nvhr.nl as usual for this exact model, and it's a typical Philips service manual. Looks like it was done in an old typewriter. It has a vintage look in itself. So I'll see what the alignment instructions say, and we'll see if we can improve this slightly. For the alignment, of course, we revert to the service manual, and as I mentioned, this is a very sort of homemade typewritten. Looks cool. But what we have here is this. Using Google Translate and a bit of my leftover Afrikaans, this is what it says. While doing the alignment, what you need to do is to leave the volume on maximum, over there, the tone on maximum high, put a voltmeter in the sockets for the loudspeaker. In other words, you put an AC voltmeter across the loudspeaker, and unless otherwise stated, all signals will go through a normal, Kunstantenna antenna into the antenna connector. And you then have to put some, you should seal the trimmers after you've done them with lacquer of sorts. And you start this with your variable capacitor fully open. Okay, so it's on minimum capacitance, so that's fully open. Now what they tell us to do here with the IF alignment is you select medium wave, you inject a 452 kilohertz signal, so the IF frequency is actually 452, which is again rather unusual, and you inject that into the grid 1 of B2 through a 33 nanofarad capacitor. I think there's actually an error here, but I'll show you why. And you adjust S24, S23, S21 and S22 to maximum. This here is now the the IF trap. Again, 452 into the antenna, and you adjust S19, 20, and you do that S19 to minimum. Okay, so you're basically blocking the IF from entering or exiting the radio. Okay, fair enough. Nothing new there. Let's look at the schematic, and I'll tell you why I think this is wrong. Here we have the schematic, and the two filters we need to adjust are here. Pretty self-evident. S21 is the primary, S22 is the secondary, S23 primary, S24 secondary. So those are the two IF transformers, and it makes sense. However, what does not make sense is they tell you to feed that signal into here, the grid of B2. Now if you feed the signal into here, you can align that there. You're aligning or adjusting, tuning this transformer, but you have no way of tuning this one. So I think they probably meant that you set the signal in here and you align this one, and then you go back to the normal situation where you feed the signal into this grid of the mixer oscillator and you adjust this IF transformer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to feed it into the grid of the mixer oscillator, and I'll be able to do both. No problem. We measure the result of that tuning by putting an AC voltmeter across the speaker. They're telling us to put it across the speaker terminals at the back. Makes no difference. I'm using that anyway. As is very typical with the Philips service manuals, you get a nice schematic here, or drawing, 3D drawing, and you can very clearly see that they mean these two transformers to be tuned. Here we have S21, 22 and 23, 24. Very easy to identify. They're the only IF transformers on the back. of the set, so it's quite easy to do that. And also, they're both done from the top of the radio. There's nothing underneath, so that just makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to set that up, and we'll see if we can improve the IF response on this thing. I'm not sure if anybody's messed with it, so we'll give it a try. I've set this up as usual. I've got a 452 kilohertz signal coming into the grid of the ECH81 from the signal generator. The signal generator is coming through the stepped attenuator just so that we can adjust the level. The stepped attenuator is AC coupled, so we've got a capacitor in there already. And I've got the radio ready, and I've got it on dummy load, so if I put it on speaker, I can hear it. Okay, we can now see the result on the voltmeter, AC voltmeter. I think I'm going to drop the level just a little bit more, maybe by 3 dB. Yeah, I'm going to put it again on dummy load so we don't have to listen to that. And now I'm going to adjust these guys over there. Let's see what happens. Let's get going. Here we go. Let's try that guy first. Looks pretty much peaked to me. That was peaked, no change. This one. No change. Looks like nobody messed with these guys. Whoa. It's not in the groove. These screws are very, very small. Doesn't look like I'm getting any change at all. Nope, that's peaked. And that's as simple as that. Nothing more to it. So the IF is perfectly peaked. And you might have noticed something, if you're very observant. The dial lamp has just burnt out. A bit strange. Okay, it happens. Let's see what else we need to do. You might have also noticed that I had I put the dial plate, the faceplate back on. All I did here was I sprayed the back. I cleaned it very gently and I sprayed the back with clear lacquer just so that it seals all the decals on there and doesn't allow any more chipping. This was really just sort of fading away. Little chips coming off everywhere. It's been cleaned in the front and the knobs have been cleaned and everything else, so that's another step done. The result of this is really a little bit disappointing. I was hoping, it's always nice when you get a nice big change when you adjust the IF, but it looks like nobody messed with it. I now just have to step back and just plan what I've got left. Basically, I'm going to have a quick look at the RF alignment, see if it's necessary. I'm going to stop this for now, and I'll be coming back with the second video in which I think I'll be finishing it. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and if you have, click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And once again, thanks for watching. Bye for now, and stay safe.